The next preposition we will study is the preposition above. The speaker applies the preposition above to signify the relationship of the absolute position that the subject of the preposition exists in the higher position than the position where the object of the preposition as the absolute standard exists. The speaker applies the preposition above to describe the subject that exists in a position that is higher than the position of the object. The speaker sets the preposition of the object of the preposition above as the absolute standard. The object of the preposition above or the preposition below practices the role of the standard to discern the position where the subject of the preposition exists. The preposition below sets the object of the preposition as the absolute standard. The concept, the absolute standard, is comparable to the standard that is relative. And changeable. There is a clause. Today's temperature is above 32 degrees Fahrenheit. The speaker sets the object of the preposition above 32 degrees Fahrenheit. That is the absolute standard to identify the position of the subject. Today's temperature in the degree of the temperature. The speaker applies the preposition above to signify the relationship of the absolute position that the degree indicated by the subject. Today's temperature is higher than the degree of the object 32 degrees Fahrenheit as the absolute standard. The next preposition we will study is the preposition on. The speaker applies the preposition on to signify the relationship of the relative position, that the position where the subject of the preposition exists is higher than the position where the object of the preposition exists. Compared to the preposition above, we can understand that the object of the preposition on is relative. The position of the subject is relatively identified compared to the position of the object of the preposition on. The application of the preposition on for the relative positions means that the speaker wants to focus on the gap between the position of the subject and the position of the object. The fact that the speaker sets the standard of identifying the positions between the subject and the object means that the speaker focuses on the gap between the position of the subject and the position of the object. The object of the preposition on or the preposition under practices the role of the changeable standard as the position where the subject of the preposition exists. the preposition under to describe the subject exists relatively in the lower position than the object, which is the changeable standard. The changeable standard as the object of the preposition on or under is comparable to the object of the preposition above or below to practice the role as the absolute standard that is hard to change. There is a clause, you dream on. The speaker states the object of the preposition to signify that the subject of the preposition exists in a higher position than the position that the object of the preposition exists. However, the speaker abbreviates the object of the preposition on in a clause that the speaker intends to add the definition of the preposition on to the condition indicated by the intransitive verb dream that continues conforming to the time. The abbreviated object of the preposition on is comprehensible in the following way. With a perspective that we, the children of the One, meet Jesus Christ in the consciousness, because the One conceptualizes the righteous object that we see in our living, the object of the preposition on indicates the ground from which the concept conveyed from the One is uplifted. There is a ground that the subject, the listeners, actualize the definition of the intransitive verb. And the ground is abstract. So we can understand that the spiritual ground to actualize the definition of the intransitive verb dream can be the relative standard or the changeable position. The relative position. The flow of time is on the premise that the ground exists. So the listeners prolong the period to the point that the condition indicated by the intransitive verb dream is assumed to last with the preposition on. There is a clause, I go to church on Sundays. The speaker applies the preposition on to signify the relationship that the subject church of the preposition exists during the periods indicated by the object Sundays of the preposition that are repeatedly actualized by the One. The object of the preposition on are changeable. The second clause is this. He attaches this on a wall. The speaker applies the preposition on to signify the relationship of the relative location that the subject of the preposition exists in the higher location than the location where the object or wall of the preposition exists. Sorry. The speaker applies the preposition on. This tells us that the object of the preposition on, a wall, is not an absolute standard to discern the position of the subject, this, of the preposition on. The subject this of the preposition on is the object of the transitive verb attaches to get the action indicated by the transitive verb attaches from the subject he of the transitive verb attaches. The object indicated by the indicative pronoun this receives the definition of the transitive verb attaches from the subject he. The preposition on conveys the definition of the preposition from the subject to the object. At the same time, when the action indicated by the transitive verb attaches is conveyed from the subject of the clause he to the object this, because the preposition does not reveal the tense by itself. This explanation is the review for the reason why the object of the preposition about an experience, a condition, or an action stated in the form of a gerund. The form of the gerund reveals that the experience, condition, or action lasts during a period. The period is included in the point of time revealed by the tense of the verb. So we can understand that the gerund, the definition of the gerund, explaining an experience, a condition, or an action relies on the point in time when the definition of the verb actualizes in the clause. So the relationship to convey the action indicated by the transitive verb attaches and the relationship of the relative location by the definition of the preposition on are mediated at the same time. This explanation is about the reliance of the definition of the preposition on the definition of the transitive verb attaches.